For this week's video, I want to be talking more about dog walking. A lot of the people that I work with come to me because they need help with dog walking, especially people with reactive dogs. So today I'm going to go over some very simple things that everyone should be taking with them on every single walk. Sometimes with certain dogs, even just to go out to the bathroom. And with dogs that are still in training, these are things that you should be using in your backyard. So let's jump into it and start with a few items that are going to help you in your training. Okay, so the first thing that I want to talk about is a pouch. I've tried using, I myself have tried using just regular fanny packs before. There's not as many things that you can do with them as a pouch that's specific for dog training. So I find it really important to have a pouch that like this. This is what I usually use. It's old, it's a little dirty, but it has a pocket here for treats that you can put into that pocket. It also has another pocket, which I like to use for if I am with a dog that happens to poop and I pick up the poop, I like to be able to put it in here because the rest of the walk I still need to work on training with the dog and I need two hands for that. So if there's no trash cans around, I'm going to put the poop in here and just dispose of it when the walk is over. It's much harder to work with a dog if you're carrying a bag of poop in your hand, so that's really helpful to have multiple pockets. It's got a big pocket in here for storing your own things like phones or gloves or keys, and then it's got a little pocket over here with a little hole for poop bags. Not all of them, but most training pouches will have like clips like this on at least one side. And what I do is I get a carabiner and I attach it to one of the clips. That way I can attach the leash to the pouch, which is really important because a very common way that people will have their dogs run away from them is if they just accidentally drop the leash because they're holding it loosely or whatever. If they're picking up poop and they have too much things in their hands and they accidentally drop the leash. So the best thing to do is to have it attached to you. A pouch like this with a lot of pockets so that you can really be hands-free, so that your hands are always on the leash and always working with treats with your dog. I know a lot of people will get frustrated that they have to take all these things to go on a walk with their dog, but it is really important to make sure that you have as much success on your walks as possible, whether it's just a free walk or it's a training walk or a bit of a combination of both. All right, the next thing I want to talk about are leashes. No matter where I'm walking with a dog, I like to have a long leash. It's really important to remember that walks are not playtime for your dogs. It's not a time for your dog to be interacting with other dogs. There's a lot of things that can go wrong. I like to use a very long leash. This one I think is 20 or 25 feet long. I recommend at least 15 feet. You can always just use the loop here to clip it onto your pouch, but some of them have like little loops on them. Like with any dog walk, you need to be paying attention to how much slack you're giving your dog, and you need to be aware of who's around you, what's around you, in order to know when to control the length of the leash. A lot of people give their dogs too much slack and a lot of people don't give them enough. So if you're restraining them too much, too often, and you're in close quarters with something that might be a trigger, your dog is more likely to be more stressed out and possibly more reactive. The next thing I want to talk about are treats. A lot of people will use store-bought treats. I wouldn't use those. I don't really like them. A lot of them aren't very healthy for a dog, for considering the amount that you need to use to train a dog. You can use their regular food, although I don't really recommend anyone use kibble to feed their dog at all. It's not very healthy. My go-to for training is hot dog. I use only beef hot dogs. Here's a bag of them. And I cut them up, but I leave them kind of big so that way I can really hold a good chunk in my hand so I can give tiny pieces. Another thing that a lot of people will say when they start using treats to train their dog is that their dog is too into the treats or they're jumping on them to get the treats. This means that you're not using the treats appropriately. A dog is going to get frustrated if they are expecting a treat and you're not giving it to them consistently. This is at first. After a while, your dog is not going to care as much and you're going to be able to wean them off of that. Remember, it's very important to remember, aversive tools, there is no weaning period. So the only type of training where you can get rid of the tools that you actually use is positive reinforcement. If your dog is jumping to get a treat while you're on a walk and you're getting frustrated with bringing treats on the walk because your dog is all over the place, there's two things you can do. First of all, treat more frequently, add in more skills for your dog to do so that they have something to distract them from jumping and they're able to be rewarded with a treat, with what they want. That's just redirecting. Another thing you can do, sometimes treats will be too stimulating for some dogs. In that case, use more boring food. That's a case where I would use store-bought treats, but just make sure that they're not too fatty and have too many grains in them. Another important thing is you want to make sure that you have treats that aren't going to crumble. If they do, then if you drop crumbs while you're trying to give your dog a treat or while you're trying to lure them through a skill, they're going to be more interested in the crumbs that fell because they're easier to get than the treat that you have. Hot dogs are just so great because they're already cooked when you get them. You don't really have to do anything with them, just cut them up. You don't even really have to do that. A few other things is you want to make sure that your dog has a well-fitting harness. It's much easier for a dog to get out of a collar, and it's much more dangerous to use a prong collar or choke chain or a slip collar. So you want to make sure that you're using a harness and you want to make sure that it's well fitting so that the dog is not able to slip out. But like I said, it's easier for a dog to get out of a loose fitting collar than it is for a dog to get out of a loose fitting harness. The best case scenario is that your harness will have a clip in the front. That's something that I like to look for because it takes away the most amount of pressure on the dog's body. Remember, the more pressure that a dog feels on their body, the higher their stress levels are going to be. So you want to make sure that the harness is not tight, but you want to make sure that it's supportive. It's not going to slip off and it's secure. So the thing that I like to remind clients is that your dog's walk is for your dog. It's not for you. If you want to get your steps in, don't expect to bring your dog with you. It's just not fair to the dog. If you have multiple dogs, if you have a multi-dog household, I like to see a multi-dog household have each dog walked individually. It gives them a chance to get their own space from each other, and it's much easier to work with each dog individually than it is to work with 2 or 3 dogs at a time. Really important for us to be aware of where our attention is focused. Because if we're working with our dog, if they're trained, you still need to be attentive to what they're sniffing, what they're looking at, what's in their environment, what's coming towards you. All of those things are very important, especially if you have a trained dog that has some anxiety. So because of that, you need to take out all distractions, like having headphones in, being on your cell phone. Even if your dog is going to the bathroom, it's not a time for you to be on your phone. Your dog is very vulnerable when they're just squatting there going to the bathroom. You have to be on guard. There could be a dog coming, there could be a person coming. That's a very important time for you to be aware of what's going on in your dog's environment so that you can make an assessment as to, do I pick up the poop right now, or do I focus on this dog that's coming by and then go and pick up the poop? It's very easy and doesn't take much time at all. Another thing, this is really important for people with reactive dogs especially. When and where to walk your dog. A lot of people will walk their dogs before work, maybe at lunchtime, and after work. So if you have a reactive dog, I would try to walk your dog in between those periods. You're limiting the exposure to the other people out walking their dogs. If you have a reactive dog, I don't recommend walking your dog in your neighborhood. Usually there will be other dogs in the neighborhood that could startle your dog and create more anxiety for your dog. That's something that you work up to, and you don't just go on a walk with them. That would be more along the lines of flooding. You really have to work up to that and gradually introduce something like that. The best thing to do is, even before you get a dog, is to go and scout out some areas that have open space that you don't normally see a lot of people letting their dogs off leash in. Sometimes this could be a parking lot. It's very frustrating when you're working with a dog who's very scared and you're trying to gradually introduce them to new experiences, and then other people are just bombarding them with their dog running up off leash to them. I think it's something that is really important that not a lot of people consider, is that to be a responsible dog owner, you have to be considerate of other people's dogs and their needs. There's nothing that shows that a dog feels more free off leash than on leash. The last thing I'm going to touch on, this is really important, is perspective. If you are starting out training your dog, do not have a destination on your walks. See how far you can get and don't put a time frame on it. If you have limited time, go on a shorter walk and do more training on that walk. The more training you do on a walk is just going to be as stimulating as going on a free walk and letting your dog exercise their brain from sniffing around. You don't just want to go from point A to point B, even if your dog is trained. You want them to be more stimulated than that, and we do that by letting them sniff around and go on free walks, and we also do that by giving them tasks to do on their walk. Simple things like practicing the skills that they already know, like come and heel, and make it fun, because it's fun. It's not, training your dog is not militant. The more fun we make training and our experiences on walks with our dogs, the more reliable they're going to be on future walks. These are some things that can really take a lot of pressure off when working with your dog, so that you don't stress about their walks and create more stress for the dog themselves. Because if we're stressed on a walk, they can smell our fear hormones, so technically they can smell fear and it will stress them out. The point is to feel comfortable and confident on their walks. The leash is just a boundary. It's not there to control the dog. If you follow these tips, I guarantee that you'll have much more success on your walks, especially with a reactive dog. Be proactive, have fun. These are supposed to be good, happy, exciting experiences. This is my guinea pig cage. As an animal behavior student, I've been reading studies on a lot of different animals. So after dogs and cats, small animals are really in need of good homes. A lot of people just get them willy-nilly and then give them away to rescues that don't have room for them. So I'm trying to do my part and going to be adopting and maybe fostering a group of girls. So this is my guinea pig cage. It's quite the pad. Anyway, I have a YouTube channel for that, so if you're interested in that, you can check that out. I'll put a link to that in the video description. Have fun on your walks with your dog. Make sure your dog is having fun. Just have fun.